intimidating aspect to his character. So, turning now to look at the rest of the characters that comprise this game, and starting with Tifa, as I mentioned her briefly already, we have an interesting tangle of personalities and personal story arcs that overlap and contend with one another. Perhaps the most obvious is the case of Tifa, because it seems that she's predetermined as Cloud's love interest from childhood right up until Ares enters the picture. And where some might interpret this as a jarring and, counter to the idea of fated romance that persists in other Final Fantasy games, I quite liked it, and it was clearly intentional, as Square made a big deal out of offering Cloud the chance to flirt with either of these respective characters and take one of them out on a date in a humorous side quest. So, as far as romantic foil goes, Tifa is a break from the Final Fantasy mould. She's strong-willed, she holds her own in most situations, which makes her somewhat relieving from the self-depreciating and male-reliant heroines we find in most other games. And there's also a pang of pity for her, because she really does take great strides trying to salvage Cloud, and she clearly has, affections for him, but despite all this legwork, including delving into his mind, when he's in that Mako-induced vegetation, she doesn't end up with the romance she deserves, which is evidenced, in the detachment between her and Cloud that we see 2 years later in the events of Advent Children. Compared to Barrett, Red, Yuffie, and other characters, it's also noteworthy that Tifa has less gameplay segments dedicated to her own personal backstory. And this is because, again, her past is so intertwined with Cloud's that all of his flashbacks to some extent feature events that shaped Tifa's formative years as well, and enforced her resolve against Shinra and Sephiroth. For example, we see her father murdered at the Nibelheim reactor and her village burnt to the ground. We have fleeting references to characters that shaped her persona, such as Zagan and the Children of Nibelheim. So there's plenty of character development here, and Tifa is more than just the catalyst to identifying Cloud's false personality, because she has all this depth to her plight as well. But saying that, it's also important to note that, particularly by the time the game takes place, Cloud is the most significant person in Tifa's life, and many of the things he's forgotten, such as the promise made by the well, she acutely remembers and reminds him of, because of that shared history and emotional attachment to him. Indeed, during Cloud's flashback segment at the village of Calm, and if you choose to sleep in Lower Junnan, where you rescue Priscilla, you see these kind of questioning kind of aspects, and you see a bit more depth to her character because she's questioning these aspects of Cloud's past that she subsequently fills in. So yeah, she's extremely relevant to Cloud, but she also has this shared history that kind of informs how her own formative years are shaped too.